republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item on the agenda is we have Kim Gennaro from PW Grosser Consulting to go over our secret report for the wastewater treatment facility. Joe, I don't know if you want to give an introduction, or we just want to go right to Kim.
Okay, yeah, thanks everybody. Kim is here. She's the third-party consultant that conducted the secret review for us. Her role, and I'll let Kim elaborate on her scope more specifically as she starts her presentation. Her role was to review the project documents thus far, to make an assessment of the environmental impact in accordance with the secret law and procedure, and to sort of validate from one layer removed some of the studies and projects related design decisions that were made to date.
Kim, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm just going to share my screen. Christina can give me access. Okay, everyone can see my screen?
Yep.
So good afternoon. Introduction to myself. I am Vice President at PW Grosser Consulting. I am a certified environmental planner through the American Institute of Certified Planners. We were retained as the secret consultant for the proposed municipal wastewater treatment facility. And today I'm just going to quickly go through the secret process to date and what our firm prepared on behalf of the town board. The secret process to date, the action was preliminary classified as unlisted. We proceeded to prepare part one of the short environmental assessment form. Although coordinated review is optional for unlisted actions, we did undertake coordinated review with all of the involved and interested agencies. There were no objections to the town board serving as the lead agency. We did receive written correspondence with comments from the County Health Department, the State Department of Transportation, and the Suffolk County Department of Economic Development and Planning. We acknowledge that we did receive public comments as well. Our firm prepared parts 2 and 3 of the short environmental assessment form, and then we also prepared an expanded environmental assessment form, a supplemental analysis to really delve into the potential impacts of the project. The next steps for this town board as lead agency is to determine the significance. What is that? That's the negative declaration or the positive declaration, and I'll get to that at the end after I go through what we evaluated. And after issuing your determination of significance, then you'll go on to obtain the requisite permits and approvals and funding from the DEC, the Department of Transportation, the pump station easement from the Shelter Island Library, and the funding sources, Suffolk County and the DEC. I think it's important to note when we started coordinated review back in November, we were using the August 15th engineering report. During the process, we acknowledged that there was a future desired expansion of the library and a future potential plan to improve town-owned residential housing. So the wastewater treatment facility, the design flow capacity was increased to 8,000 gallons per day. We also, due to rapidly evolving treatment technologies for PFAS, no specific removal technology is proposed at this time, but space and electric capacity will be provided in the operations building to add the treatment systems in the future. Addendas 1 and 2 were prepared by Lombardo Associates, which included modeling of groundwater and surface water, and PO had gone through this on March 21st. It's important to recognize that the addenda were also prepared in response to comments that were received from the public and from the agencies. So our expanded EAF supplemental analysis, this is the content of the document. The document has been transmitted to the town, and I believe it has already been uploaded. We provide an introduction, we describe the proposed action, we look at the purpose, needs, and benefits of the project. We describe the alternatives that were considered during the process. And our impact assessment looked at water resources, which is groundwater quality, the impact on surrounding wells, the impact to surface waters, stormwater runoff, wetlands, and coastal resources. We looked at the impacts on land use and community character. We looked at the consistency with land use and community plans, ecological resources, cultural resources, energy resources, and construction-related impacts, specifically land, traffic, noise, and ecology. And we also looked at the growth-inducing impacts, as that was a comment. So I'm going to go through just the impact analyses, starting with the water resources, which seem to be the number one issue definitely for the public, and we have done a thorough evaluation. So the proposed nitric system is approved technology by the County Health Department and the DEC. The County Health Department did acknowledge that in its correspondence to the town board that this is approved technology. The design, the plant has been cited in accordance with the standards and regulations of the County Health Department, as well as New York State Health Department, which sets forth horizontal distance requirements for the protection of water wells. The wastewater treatment facility, as we went through on the 21st, the total nitrogen in the effluent is 3 mgl. Nitrogen loading is 54 pounds a year for the design flow, or 27 pounds a year for the average flow. The project is going to result in the removal of over 1,000 pounds of nitrogen currently being discharged to groundwater, and that's based on the average flow of 4,000 GPD. The existing nitrogen loading to Menantic Creek and Shelter Island Sound will be eliminated by this project. The impacts on Gardner's Creek were evaluated. The total nitrogen in the wastewater discharge is going to increase by 0.020 milligrams per liter, which is a 1.4% increase. And it's that 1.4% increase is in the portion of the wastewater flow that represents the existing groundwater flow that's going into the creek. So right now, the wastewater flow represents approximately 2.5% of the existing groundwater flow into the creek. Post-development, that volume it goes to 3.3%. So we're talking a negligible change, a de minimis increase. It's not a significant impact. The modeling demonstrates that the treated effluent discharge is cross gradient or down gradient of wells, or it does not intersect with the well recharge areas, meaning that it's at a significant depth below the well recharge area, greater than 60 feet, and that was modeled. We did communicate with Suffolk County Water Authority. They did evaluate this project. There's no impact on existing Suffolk County Water Authority public wells, existing or future. I think it's important to note that groundwater monitoring wells will be installed up gradient and down gradient of this wastewater treatment facility and sampled monthly. Regarding stormwater, it will be accommodated and recharged on site with drainage structures. There are no wetlands on or adjacent to the project area. And the property is within the Department of State Coastal Management Zone. We prepared the coastal assessment form, which demonstrates that there's no impact on coastal resources. As for the impact on land use, community character, and consistency with the plans, the proposed action converts undeveloped town-owned land to a town-owned wastewater treatment facility. Development is the 400 square foot operations building and all the below grade components. The building, the 400 square foot building, is going to be set back 85 feet from Manwaring Road. And The distance from the east, west, and southern property lines are 100 feet, 54 feet, and 192 feet, so significant setbacks. Fencing is going to be installed around the treatment area, and landscaping will be planted around the fencing perimeter, so there'll be no exposed fencing, and as well as along the site boundary. So visually, there'll be no impact. The proposed building is precast concrete, and as Pio had explained, the building facade will be developed during the design phase and presented at public meetings to solicit any community preferences. As for its consistency with the plans, the action does respond to documented groundwater conditions in the town center. It has been identified as a desired action item in the One Island, One Water plan. And the action is consistent with the Suffolk County Subwatershed Wastewater Plan to reduce nitrogen pollution in surface waters and groundwater. As far as ecological resources, the area is located proximate to known habitat for the northern long-eared bat. The New York State DEC recommends to avoid a species take that any tree cutting activities need to occur between December 1st and February 28th. And the construction schedule will set forth for that. So there'll be no clearing outside of that window. And there's no other tree removal outside of 16 Manwaring Road proposed. As far as cultural resources, the project has been reviewed by the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, and they have issued correspondence indicating that the project is appropriate and that there will be no adverse impact. As far as energy resources, we're estimating energy usage at 1,500 kW, kilowatt hours per month. And I put, just for comparative purposes, the residential electricity consumption in New York State averages about 603. So this is about 2.5 residential homes as far as energy usage. Electrical services is available in Manwaring and a connection would be established. The design would include an energy efficient heat pump, and a solar canopy over the treatment area is also going to be considered to reduce energy demand. As far as construction related impacts, there's about 1.5 acres of land disturbance projected to result. Stormwater pollution prevention plan will be prepared, which will include erosion and sedimentation controls. And to avoid the impact to the northern long-eared bat potential habitat, the clearing of trees would occur only during that permitted time frame of December through February 28th. Construction-related traffic impacts. We had a construction schedule in the document. The total length of construction is approximately 9 months. The placement of the sewer lines along Ferry Road are subject to a DOT highway work permit. And required for that permit is a work zone traffic control plan, which will be submitted to DOT. It's going to include appropriate signage and/or flagmen to direct traffic movements during the installation of the lines and repairing of any asphalt within the right of way. The proposed construction schedule does avoid the installation of your collection system during the summer months of July and August. The schedule right now sets forth March to June. Approximately 25 trucks are expected for the delivery of equipment and materials over a duration of 4 to 5 months. When you average this out, it's 5 trucks per month. Post-development, we're looking at 1 vehicle trip per day for the facility. And then the pump out of solids on the affected parcels, according to the engineer, maybe once every 7 years. Traffic impacts. Noise-related impacts. The construction will limit to 8-hour days, Monday through Friday, no weekend work. It'll occur between the non-sensitive time periods of 7 to 5. Idling of construction vehicles will be controlled by the project manager, and these construction impacts are temporary in duration. And finally, regarding the growth-inducing impacts, I put the definition of what this really means. It's those that may encourage or lead to further increases in population or business activity. This proposed plan is being considered to accommodate and treat sanitary waste from the identified parcels only. And the proposed design does consider the future potential changes to the library and the town-owned residential housing. There's no future connection to other properties being considered. So there are no growth-inducing impacts. There's no additional analysis required. So when I started, I was talking about the determination of significance. So under SECR law, to determine that an environmental impact statement will not be required for an action, the town board as the lead agency must determine either that there will be no adverse impacts or that the identified adverse impacts will not be significant. In making that decision, you must take the hard look at all relevant impacts of the whole action. We prepared the short EAF, the expanded EAF, and the attachments, including the addenda prepared by Lombardo Associates and other attachments, including the consultations with the agencies. We've evaluated the relevant impacts of the action. We have considered the comments, requests, and input of the various agencies. We have considered the public comments. We have considered the specific criteria for determining significance, which are included in the SECR law. And based on the analyses performed, it's our opinion that the proposed action will not have any significant adverse impacts. And in this case, as the lead agency, when you determine that there are no significant adverse impacts, a negative declaration is appropriate and should be prepared. We have recommended the issuance of a negative declaration. So I would be happy to answer any questions. I will stop sharing my screen so I can see you all.
Joe, you have anything?
No, I would suggest that, town board direct any questions, yeah.
I read it and I didn't have any questions.
Yeah. The only one I have, Kim, is on when you say public comments and you accumulated public comments, how helpful were they to you in doing the evaluation?
Well, public comments are always helpful. It's the purpose of the SECR process, I believe, to get the community input. And from the early correspondence to the comments received back at the last meeting, I mean, it's always helpful. It helps to define the community importance and the issues that matter. So, of course, helpful.
Excuse me, the only thing I'd like to say is that we get a lot of people saying, these are paid consultants coming in and we're looking for a particular outcome. That is not true. They were hired to do a SECR analysis, and we did not direct them to come with one conclusion, positive or negative declaration. So I just want to put that out there on the record. That was all that I.
On the record, we have the original RFP with consultant P.O. Lombardo. We have the town engineer's input too. We had the hydrologist who I can't think of his name off.
Sole Source Consulting.
Temporary, yep.
Now we have P.W. Gross. So we have separate individual engineers.
Kim, Kim, can you talk a little bit about, I'm not sure if you can, so I'm just truly a fresh question. Can you talk a little bit about the ModFlow design, the ModFlow modeling? Is that what it's called? Do I have the title right? And just in terms of, is this woo-woo? I mean, nobody's looking underground. So I just sort of want to, again, so people understand, and I understand that this is, the way to go about it, to analyze where's the effluent going. And B,
Okay.
yeah, just one more, and then sort of put a confidence level around it. I've asked this question of everybody, and I just sort of, because you're the, the independent, I'd like to know your answer.
Yeah, so this is the accepted model and ModFlow.
Yeah.
And there was the input of sole source consultant that showed that the I'm just looking at, so the calibration of the model, we're talking about a 0.0005% error. That's what we're dealing with. This is what hydrogeologists are using to evaluate and model groundwater.
Mhm, mhm.
Could you perhaps expand, just in your opinion, the effort made for modeling and subsequent analysis is, in your opinion, that commensurate with the scale of the proposed project?
Well, I've never seen in my career, 25 years now doing this, I've never seen a plant at 8,000 GPD modeled. It's considered, it's a relatively small flow. I've seen modeling for plants that are 20,000. But typically we would not model something like this. So the level of effort put in to demonstrate what the potential impact is, not only, to ensure that there is no impact to any of the nearby supply wells, and to also model what the contributing nitrogen is to the creek. I'm confident that I could say that there are no adverse impacts. This is to me, it's a project with beneficial impacts, with the removal of over 1,100 pounds of nitrogen in the current systems.
Tim, I have a quick question. For the lay people out there, the lay secret people, would you be able to just explain, because there's a lot of hyper-technical language you use in EAFs, that you just walk the board again just through the secret process, just to put again all this expert analysis into context?
So the secret process considers all of the expert analysis in determining whether are there adverse impacts, and if they're adverse, are they significant? And then based on that analysis, you are to issue a negative declaration or a positive declaration. Do you want me to go further on the process, or?
No. I was hoping you can, go up the ladder of abstraction a little bit and just talk about the secret process generally. Like, again, explain what you were charged with doing through in short form EAF, and just the steps.
Right. So the steps are, the secret process commence with preliminarily classifying the action. That means, is it unlisted or type 1? Why that's important is it determines the type of EAF that you should prepare. An unlisted action, the DEC recommends the use of the short EAF. For type 1 actions, they recommend the long EAF. And for unlisted actions that are sort of borderline, they could be type 1, the more significant projects, you can use the long form. This was preliminary classified as an unlisted action. We prepared the short EAF, and the next step is coordinated review. Is the town board wants to serve as the lead agency. The coordinated review aspect is transmitting the EAF and all the project related.
Kim, I'm sorry, can I just stop you real quick?
Yes.
So just for everyone's edification, a short form EAF is basically like a 3-page document with yes, no questions that you check boxes, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
and then?
Right, and it's generated through the New York State DEC has an EAF mapper, and we run that mapper. And just for background, we also run the full EAF mapper, because that also advises, sometimes there may be a resource that doesn't get picked up on the short form. But we prepare the short form, it goes to all the agencies. And we coordinated with the DEC, County Health Department, Planning, DOT, all of the properties are going to be connected. And what that coordinated review memo said is the town board wants to pursue this project, wants to serve as lead agency. Please advise of any comments, and please advise if you object to us taking the lead in the secret process. None of the agencies objected. Some of the agencies provided comments. We then used those comments, took those comments, considered them in our evaluation. Suffolk County Planning asked us to look at certain land use plans to ensure consistency. They also advised that we should be communicating with Suffolk County Water Authority to make sure that there was no impact to any future plans. And we also looked at all of the public comments. And from that, I prepared our document, but in coordination with Pio Lombardo and Sole Source Consulting, we further analyzed the things that were of concern. And the expanded EAF is that analysis. The water section is really a summary of what Lombardo Associates and the hydrogeologists did, but we did review that. So in the secret process, after the completion of the complete short form, which you did, as well as do expanded environmental assessment, the lead agency is charged with making a determination. That's basically your decision. And that's what's leading us to today, where there are no significant adverse impacts. And I think a negative declaration is appropriate.
Thank you.
All right, can I follow up with this, Kim? So when you review, this is, sixth grade language, when you review the proposal and the reports from both Sole Source and Pio Lombardo Associates, would you pick up if in fact there was faulty science involved here? Would that be part of this, or are you at a level above?
No, what we're looking at is methodology. Is this the accepted methodology? So that's what we're looking at.
So good methodology means good science.
Yeah, because it's accepted methodology in the industry, how
Right.
we're arriving at our results.
Right. So we're taking bad effluent, turning it into good effluent, if there's such a thing. I think there is. And we're redirecting it
Right.
from a creek, right, from a
Right.
creek that's been negatively impacted.
Right. So you have a proposed system that's being proposed that's already approved by Suffolk County for use in Suffolk County, as well as the DEC. The total nitrogen in the effluent is approximately 3 mgl. New York State drinking water standard is 10. So it's below the New York State drinking water standard. So you are removing individual systems and investing in a treatment system that is really the best way to go. I mean, it provides the highest level of nitrogen removal. And we took it a step further in what does that look like when it gets to the end point of Gardner's Creek? And with flush out, by the time it gets to the creek, the increase is 0.020 mgl.
Kim,
So it's not significant.
we don't have a lot of examples of infrastructure projects historically on the island. Could you speak perhaps to either some examples or in your assessment, how far from or what would cause a positive declaration, so we can get a sense of scale and other perhaps examples of how close this project would align with a positive declaration, or examples of other such projects that would be considered a positive declaration?
Well, it's hard to give an example, but a positive declaration in this case would be something that would cause a a significant public health impact, or potentially a situation where you're not compliant with the standards. Because there are standards that are set for this system. This system is subject to the DEC's review and a speedies permit. So the DEC is going to ensure that when the plant that is accepted and approved is compliant with the New York State standards. So it's hard to give an example of what could draw a pause deck.
Well, would this be an example or not? And if you're not comfortable answering this, I think I understand. But if we just designed systems that would put 19 back in to the ground, it would meet a state standard, I think.
Yes.
But it would still be poisoning our drinking water and our creek.
Well,
Would that matter?
well, if you were, and I know that this was an alternative, and the county the county IA, it allows for the IA system, which is the 19 MGL, which is an accepted practice of the county. That's permitted. No, that wouldn't draw a pause deck, but that alternative was evaluated, and with the variances that were required, it wasn't desired. And you've gone a step further, and you've gone with a treatment system that treats the effluent down to an effluent concentration of 3. So to me, it's a beneficial impact. It's a better project.
Anybody else on the town board? Anybody in the audience? I'll come up and identify yourself.
Just a real quick question. I'm from, we spoke the other day and you had mentioned that it would be truckloads of effluent if you would capture it all and take it off the island. So my question is for whoever can answer it. How many gallons per day is this new system going to suck from our aquifer and use to move this effluent and treat it?
So if I'm understanding your question, you're right. The design flow is 8,000 gallons per day. That's a code measured flow where we add up the usage of each building and its respective output. The typical flow is usually about 50% of that, so about 4,000 gallons per day, which is what I made reference to with the truck solution that you had proposed. That would be the volume that needed to be extracted each day in a holding tank scenario. Set aside the issue that that's not a permittable approach, but in concept, that's the volume that would have to be removed each day.
So this system will suck 4,000 gallons per day to operate
Well, that includes.
What do you mean, suck?
That includes
from
urine.
our aquifer.
Oh.
But it's going back, it's as every, same, similar as every house, Tom. Goes out, it goes in, it goes out, it goes, it's a cycle. Not taking it out and getting rid of it.
Well, unless I'm wrong, that all the effluent from up here, or the sewage from up here has to get pushed down there, right?
This is
It's not going to flow on its own.
No, but it's not, it's the existing wastewater. There's no extra water being extracted from the aquifer for treatment.
Like when you flush.
It's the water that's currently generated by the building.
I'm probably missing something, but when you flush a toilet, it's going to flow all the way down there?
Eventually, yeah. Yeah,
And there's a pump assist at the library, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Which has to generate extra water?
No.
no, just the water that's,
Like just a pump, not a pump pulling water.
Doesn't require any extra water than the water that is currently being used.
Right.
So there's no additional water we generated because we're now treating the wastewater differently.
Right.
It's the same volume that's currently being created, and it's just that same volume being treated. So you don't have to generate more water usage in order to create flow, if that's what you're thinking.
There's no solids.
Yeah, no.
There's no solids. Solids stay here and they have to be pumped just like with an IA system, it's sort of the same design, same idea.
Zero,
I think what,
zero extra water.
No,
Right, it doesn't use any extra water in the system.
I think what you're getting at is maybe just we're moving it from here down to there, to where the recharge goes. I think that's more what you're saying, is like, we're not recharging it in place here, we're moving the recharge
I
somewhere.
understand that, I just.
Yeah.
It was literally wondering if
It's
there's
just like,
an
Water was gonna be a vehicle to.
Okay,
No,
got it, okay.
No.
that's okay.
Thank you.
Bob?
It's always exciting, Bob.
Question for the consultant who's online. You mentioned earlier that the flow into Gardner's Creek of nitrogen would increase by 1.4%. Is that right?
The 1.4% is the portion of the groundwater flow that's derived from wastewater. So right now, Gardner's Creek receives over 450,000 gallons per day of groundwater. Of that, 11,380 is wastewater. So after this project, we're going to increase that flow, average flow, by 4,000 gallons per day. So it'll go from 452 to 456.
Flow of what?
Groundwater.
The creek,
Well, would it be
So the-
nitrogen?
no, I'm
Okay.
talking total groundwater flow. When you look at the nitrogen concentration, the total nitrogen concentration of the wastewater flow, it'll increase 1.4%. It's increasing by 0.020 MGL. So the total nitrogen into the creek is 1.448 MGL.
So the
But
total
now-
nitrogen,
So the 1.4% increase is only the wastewater flow, the nitrogen in the wastewater flow.
so the nitrogen in the wastewater flow to Gardner's Creek as a result of this project will increase by 1.4%. Yes or no?
Correct.
Okay. And you said that that's a negligible amount of an increase.
Because it's 400,000.
It's right, because the wastewater, I'll give it to in percentages. Today, 2.5%.
Did you?
I don't have, let her answer the question.
Okay, will I have the time?
Yes.
Yes.
2.5% of the groundwater flow that goes into the creek is wastewater, 2.5% today. This project increases that percentage by 0.8%. It's going to be 3.3% of total groundwater. So the 1.4% increase is of the 3.3% of total groundwater flow into the creek.
But again, the 1.4% increase is an increase in nitrogen, right?
Of 0.02 MGL.
You're missing the point intentionally, aren't
No,
you?
I'm not.
No, I don't think.
It's on 400,000 though, of a total groundwater flow.
But it's still a 1.4% increase in nitrogen.
All right, Joe, can I ask you a question? If we put one IA system in the area, a new system, would it negate that 1.3% increase?
Probably two, depending on the house size. And this total impact, this 1.4% that Bob's discussing, is also the equivalent of one new house. So of the watershed contributing areas to Gardner's Creek, which I think, Kim, is it about
Yes.
60 parcels? Of the 60 parcels, not all are developed. So the equivalent impact of this project is one of those parcels being developed.
So,
Right,
or
it's one-
or Sylvester Manor ever built
And
dormitories?
that doesn't include, that's only from a wastewater perspective. So that doesn't include other inputs of nitrogen like fertilizer.
I don't want to be misunderstood, but I did get an answer to my question from the consultant that as a result of this wastewater project, is going to be an increase of 1.4% nitrogen flowing to Gardner's Creek. That's part
Yeah,
one.
I'm sorry, but
Part two,
Let them go. Let's.
part two was that you said that that was a negligible amount of nitrogen, of additional nitrogen, right? That's what I heard
Okay.
earlier.
if I may, because you keep saying 1.4% increase in nitrogen to the creek, that's not correct. It's 1.4% increase only in the wastewater component, which is approximately 3% of the total groundwater going into the creek. So yes, it's minimal, de minimis, negligible.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm matching apples to apples here. Okay, so on average, how much nitrogen does a residential or commercial IA system take out from, let's say, a building the size of this, you know, with one bathroom,
About 20 pounds per house.
as a percentage? Because when you go online, it says between 97 and 98%. In other words, if I buy a Fuji system, I'm just trying to get to plain English here.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
I mean-
not accurate. Your regular household waste is about 60 milligrams per liter nitrogen, and the IA treats to the standard 19. So that's a two-thirds.
So it only takes out
66%
two-thirds of the nitrogen? Because everyone's spending a lot of money putting in nitrogen systems, and I was told it took out 97 to 98% of the nitrogen. Is that correct? When you look on the internet,
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the influent level that you're treating too. So, you know, and different systems have different levels of treatment.
But you're-
So if you blanket it and say 90%, some will reach 90%, but some won't. If you look at the county testing data, some systems get 20 milligrams per liter, some get around 10 milligrams per liter. It depends on the system.
all right, this used to be so easy because I got a grant a long time ago for one of these things. I followed it carefully. I talked to your father, and my understanding was if I put in a Fuji system in my house, I would reduce the nitrogen output by 97% or more. It was like 98% at that time. So maybe I got it wrong, but what I'm trying to say is that by putting in localized IA systems, all right, there's going to be a dramatic drop in the amount of nitrogen that's being produced where this town center is, right? My understanding was it would take out at least 97% of the nitrogen. And that's what you get when you go online and asking, what does the Fuji system take out? It's like 98%. We were told earlier that by moving it to a mile away, all that stuff, treating it there is going to take out 98.6%. So the difference between the localized IA systems of 97 or 98 and what you're doing is a marginal benefit of less than 2% of additional nitrogen. That seems to be what I understand is going on here. And when I hear that 1.4%, that number's been thrown around, that's going to be moving to Gardner's Creek, and I'm hearing that that's a negligible amount. If 1.4% reduction in nitrogen is a negligible amount, then an additional 2% reduction in nitrogen is a negligible amount. I'm suggesting that there's no study that I've seen that a 2% reduction in nitrogen has any health benefit whatsoever. So I don't fully understand why we would spend an extra $1 million to $2 million for a system that's going to provide such a small marginal benefit.
Okay, time's up.
Yeah, could I, all right, I would like to say a couple of words though, as the health educator in the room. I'm concerned about decades and decades and
There's people
decades.
waiting online, so
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
come back to you. Okay.
Decades of abuse of the center of this island. There's a health crisis in the center of this island. This system is a great first step. It's not the only step, because we're going to follow through with, after this, encouraging as many homeowners in the center of this town to go that extra step and to go to an IA system. We need a multi-pronged approach to reduce nitrogen in the center of this town, to protect the health and welfare of all the people, most of these people that live here year-round, that are our bread and butter people that live in the center of this island. That is what I'm concerned about. This is a great first step, but it is not the only step.
No more comments from you, Bob, until we come back to you, okay?
I thought this was his meeting.
what she said.
You know who I am, Mouthy. I just want to say that 98%, 1.4%, 96.2%, 2/3, these are my numbers. 19 from an IA system, when healthy water is 10. And this system gives me 3. That's number one. Number two, this system, if installed, will reverse the accumulation trend in the center, if that's the right way to say that, and ultimately help Monantic Creek and not harm in any way Gardner's Creek, which I live on. So it's kind of important to me that I don't live on a dead body of water. Those are my numbers. I mean, we can argue percentages that 1.4% refers to 11,000 gallons and not 400,000 gallons, which is the daily groundwater flow, is a concept that's perhaps difficult for many people to grasp. But I think the 19, the 10, and the 3 are easier to understand.
Anybody else in the audience?
Howdy, Greg Toner.
People who called in, did they get the comment?
Hello?
Yeah, we'll get to the Zoom people.
By name.
Yeah, we see there's a couple of hands raised.
I hear voices a lot, so I did.
They're coming from Zoom-verse.
First of all, for Kim, question, is this a paper evaluation or has your company done an on-site review as well?
An on-site, well, we know the sites, but what are you asking as far as on-site?
Yeah, have you been on the island?
Yes,
Okay, all right, so the review that you did here was physically done here as well? Like you've seen the environment?
yes.
Okay, good. The second question then is, you made a mention that this is a very small project for what typically this sort of secret has to happen. The reason for that is that we are a small island. And that's why we're here, I think, because everybody knows that we're not that big and 400,000 gallons here, 400,000 gallons there. Pretty soon it starts to add up to real numbers. Another question on the SEQA process. Is there a balancing of the benefits of a project part of the SEQA process?
No.
No,
Not with the negative declaration.
Okay.
A negative declaration requires no significant adverse environmental impacts. You do not weigh benefits.
Okay, but the benefit is the different options. In other words, there was, you had mentioned the variances that would be required is that your company's or is that the town board's opinion or PO's opinion, which is more likely?
Well, Lombardo Associates put together an evaluation of alternatives.
Right.
And what the alternatives do is it helps guide the decision on what's the better project, what works, what provides flexibility in the future. The purpose of the seeker isn't to evaluate which alternative is better. The preferred, let's call it the preferred alternative, is the proposed action here. So what I was charged to do was evaluate this proposed action. And just to go back to something that you said about it being a small project, I understand that it's small. It's not a small project for the town. But my answer was in relative to have we ever modeled the effluent from a plant of 8,000 GPD design flow? And I said, in my experience, I've never modeled that. Modeling is usually when we're upwards of 20,000 gallons per day. So I wanted to just clarify that.
Last comment then is, I was really glad to hear Jim's comment about that this is a first step, because I've always been thinking that this project is important for the center. It's really important for the center, and it was not, a slice of the center. It was the center. And I was surprised to see in the hydrologist report, you guys have all seen this, I'm sure.
Yes.
It shows that there's no nitrogen coming away from the municipal buildings going westward, 180 degrees westward. We're not doing anything in this project. And in truth, there's a relatively narrow, this. Want me to hold the chart up? God, it feels like I'm in the house.
Anna White.
There's nothing happening, like, if you go west of North Ferry Road, there's no improvement from this project. As Jim says, future projects have to happen. And in truth, the real, quote unquote, damage, if you will, of the current municipal system is this relatively narrow band that runs out into Manatee Creek, I think.
Yes.
And then there's a little bit more, I guess, some of the buildings a little farther down the road, and they somehow get pushed underneath the Goat Hill, which in the heights, which surprised me, frankly. I don't know how that could possibly happen. It's there's something like a 2 or 3 foot push.
Yeah,
So-
on GIS, you can see it's
Actually, a separation of watersheds. There's 2 separate watersheds happening in that.
So it doesn't run out underneath the heights. Then is what you're saying?
Follows that path right there.
through the garden.
Or through the Goat Hill.
Yeah, like this is a very, very high area. The water table is about 7 feet.
I'm not sure what your point is.
And down here and here, the water table is probably, it's not
Well,
on this
those are the
map.
Groundwater elevations. Those black rings are the groundwater elevations.
Oh, it's not the flow. Okay.
No, it's not flow.
The black lines.
The black lines are groundwater elevations.
Well, they're not all that very accurate now, I think, but.
Based on USGS.
Groundwater, not,
I mean, I'm not looking, if you look at the USGSA topography, you're saying that this is not water height, this is topographic? Is that what you?
No, the
No.
opposite. It's not
Yeah.
topographic. It's the water elevation, groundwater elevations only.
Well, that doesn't tie up. If you look, there's a mound underneath the heights. So I think this drawing isn't quite accurate. I was just surprised that there was so little of a benefit. It's like a 90-degree or so benefit. And there's 270 degrees that aren't getting any benefit out of the project. And in my mind, there was always, the center was being helped, but it's really 90 degrees of the.
how many houses do you
So
have?
there's no question on
A
that.
lot of houses in that path, and then it ends up in a creek that's struggling. So the benefit's bigger than you're stating. Okay, never mind.
The benefit is going, the benefit is that we're helping Manatee Creek. I don't disagree with that. But when you're saying we're going to do something large for the center, 270 degrees aren't being affected.
I would say, as Jim said,
And Jim says that's exactly right. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
anybody else? Howard?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm on Zoom.
Yeah, we'll get to you when we're done with the people in the audience. The Zoom will be followed by the people in the audience.
Good afternoon, I'm Howard Johansson. I'm looking at the same thing that you're looking at here, and there's 2 things that come to mind. The effluent seems to dive right away and follow the salt line at the bottom of the aquifer. It comes up again when it gets to the edge of where it's narrow. Is that the correct theory? So then the houses are really not affected by that flow until it comes up at Manatee Creek. And it actually goes under Manatee Creek for a portion.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Howard. The downward action is primarily caused by the influence of rainwater. You know, additional penetration is pushing those particles down. But one thing that's important to keep in mind is that the aquifer gets shallower and shallower. So, you know, like in your neighborhood, for instance, Montclair and Silver Beach, the aquifer is not quite deep at all. So those wells likely extend as far as they can into that freshwater band. And so the likelihood of interaction increases as you get closer to the island's periphery.
Right, I understand that. Now, what does this do for the drinking water center? What we're doing here will not help drinking water in the center for what, 10, 20 years?
Well, the impacts, you know, we modeled how long it takes, you know, for the flow to travel from, for instance, the school now to Menantic Creek. And that period is quite long. I think it was 33 or 34 years. That's the amount of time from start to finish. So when you implement any change here, be it IA system with a reduction or the centralized option, the clock starts on that 33 years right away, but it only takes, you know, a year or 2 years for those benefits to be felt in close proximity. So for instance, at the school, you know we have high nitrogen levels around School Street, Smith Street. They would see benefits much sooner than the 33 years. They would see benefits probably on a scale of, you know, single digit years. And then those lower nitrogen levels would start to progress further and further. So sort of last in line at Menantic Creek would be the last one to see the benefits of those lowering level. But the closer you are, the earlier it would be. So 33 years represents the total scale, but we would expect to see positive impacts to the adjacent streets relatively quickly.
5 years or so. So what are these people going to do for 5 years?
Same thing they've been doing for the last 30 years,
What?
probably
Drinking it.
bottling water.
Water and
Yeah.
drinking. Okay. Just wanted to-
I think the moral of the story is no time like the present to start this process. And this, as I want to repeat myself, is the first good, solid step forward. But the next town board, few of us won't be on that. There'll have to be all kinds of incentives and ways that we look at, especially here in the center of town, where the lens is the thickest, where the water disseminates out to the edges. To clean this up, it's going to take literally decades. I think we're very used to, as most Americans, snap our fingers and get a ready fix in 6 months or 3 months. We didn't get into this problem overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight. But the time to start is now. I'm totally convinced of that. We can no longer, in good conscience, as a town government, turn our back on the health and well-being of people that live on this island, whether you live in the center or live in the nearshore areas. It's all related. So the best efforts we make here in the center of town will have a ripple effect across the island and will improve the health and the water quality for all islanders.
If you want an instant fix, it's there, public water.
Right, that's my next question. What is the consideration of bringing public water?
You see how hard it is to pass the treatment plant. Good luck with public water.
WAC, no, the Howard.
It's not funny, Howard, it's sad.
No, but WAC has really taken that up recently and pursuing it, you know, not that they're gonna wave a magic wand and everybody will have public water,
It's a lot of
but
money.
it's a beginning of the process, exactly, and that's where we started.
And that's
Suffolk
another
County
piece
Water.
to Jim's puzzle.
Right.
It's not just IA systems and a sewer system, it's water.
Right. 63 homeowners and 7 businesses in West Atwater are paying that difference, and we're trying our best to help fund that. And as you see the roads being torn up today, as it has been for the last 2 weeks, people complaining that they have to take a detour. Hey, listen, folks, we're doing the best we can. We're looking for new wells, we're looking for better water, and we're looking to get good water to neighborhoods that need it. But this is going to be, water is never going to go away. So, and this is going to be an ongoing issue for everybody running for town boards the next 40 to 50 years. Water is going to be the centerpiece. It's always going to be a challenge for this island.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Anybody else in the audience? Okay, on Zoom, I'll just go down the road. Ben Diet.
Hi. How you doing? Sorry. Really just one question. I mean, I certainly have issue with using the 19 number to compare to other things because called an operated ice system does better than 19. That's just.
Could you speak on the
You're not coming through loud and clear. I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. My question is, where's the money coming from? I believe that the state grant was not approved. So how are we paying for this?
Well, we have a few options. We are going to apply for federal funding down the road. We can go to bond, the taxpayers can pay for it on a yearly basis. We can go to debt, or we can use WQI money.
Or some combination there.
A combination of all three.
But as you bring that problem up and talk about that, then we've already secured monies for this project, and we have continued and will continue to try to secure more additional monies. Just because you get stick around long enough, I'll talk about it in the grants meeting that we had this morning. But we have secured 3 grants for $71,925, another $30,000, another $41,925 from WQBRP. We also got $30,000 to the Municipal Wastewater Treatment Project, and we got some money from the New York State Wastewater Engineering Planning Grant. All of those people, whether it was a county grant or a state grant, found this project to be one that is of tremendous importance and significance. To date, we've taken in almost $250,000 in grant monies just for, and it does cost up front when you do all this research and you do all the design phase for this. But by the way, this town board, as long as it has a grants committee, which is active, we are going to continue to find additional monies or ways to fund these things. So we've been very successful in getting grants. If you've noticed, whether it's for roads or for municipal wastewater or for Fresh Pond or trying to get one for Real Point, we have our fingers in the dike all over the place trying to secure monies for these purposes. But I will tell you that it was a vote of confidence that the county and the state have provided us literally with hundreds of thousands of dollars for this project. We will continue that effort to go find additional monies.
Okay, congratulations on that. Good. But we're still at least 2/3 away from having the money to do this, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
It's an investment in your infrastructure, as we are investing in all our infrastructure. ADA for the 2 old buildings, we can go on and on and on, but we have a lot of assets in this town worth literally hundreds of millions of dollars. And we have paid attention to all of our assets. That's why we've developed a capital plan. First time, we'll have a capital plan in this town that will address all our capital assets, include marine, buildings, and all the other projects that we have trying to initiate. It's a yeoman's job, let me tell you.
Jim Lynch, you're next.
I was trying to, I can't start the video, but I have some questions. Oh, here we go. Have some questions directed to Ms. Gennaro. And first of all, thank you for your presentation. I understand, Ms. Gennaro, that there's certain waste that will be coming from the center, such as the library and the school, and then transported over to the wastewater facility near Manwaring Road. And then the liquid waste will be basically put down on the ground where that facility is located? Please.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then did I hear that the solid waste will be moved off island?
The solids
Yes.
get pumped, yes.
Just like they do in every household.
So at present, there's no plan whatsoever to move any of this liquid waste to other areas on Shelter Island? Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct, yes.
Okay, because, we've heard rumors that, well, maybe some of the liquid waste will be transported to other areas of the island. And if that were even contemplated, would that require an additional study on the effect on homeowners' wells and the environment in those areas?
Yes.
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 Okay, thanks. I just wanted to confirm that. I appreciate your responses.
Stella?
And just one other question.
Yep, hold on. Yep.
The liquid waste, and I don't know, somebody referred to it as good effluent, but in any event, is this liquid waste, would this be suitable for drinking purposes? Could you drink this waste?
No.
You could use it for irrigation.
But you couldn't drink it?
It would have to go through like significant treatments before it were potable.
Yeah.
So
Nitrate.
it's treated to a level where it's appropriate for irrigation, but not for human consumption.
It would require another level of treatment.
A much larger plant, Jim, located in Riverhead that was constructed years ago, put in a municipal wastewater treatment plant. They do use it for irrigation purposes only, not for recharge, but irrigation purposes only on the public golf course.
Go into the
Okay,
aquifer,
thank you very much.
wastewater into the aquifer.
But doesn't if it, this is a little off topic, but if it were to be used for irrigation purposes, wouldn't that wastewater, which is not suitable for drinking, go straight into the aquifer and cause some damage down the road?
When you irrigate, you're just irrigating, you're irrigating at a much, it's not a recharge where you're putting it down in the aquifer. When you irrigate on a golf course, for instance, and you have sprinkler systems on at nightfall, at 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, and rotate around 18-hole golf course, that stuff is absorbed right by the root systems of the grasses. That stuff's not going down into the ground. It would be if you put the same sprinkler on for extended periods of time, I guess. But for irrigation purposes, it's absorbed mostly by the plants in that area.
But what about the rest?
Okay, thank you.
Might even cut down on having the need to fertilize right away. It might be a beneficial thing rather than using fertilizers that by irrigating, if it has a small traces of nitrogen in it, maybe that helps a golf course. And the other thing that we've talked about, and I've gotten this from several people, is places that have hills on the golf course where it runs off. By moistening it during the months of July and August, for instance, it moistens the soil enough that when you get a heavy rain, rather than get a lot of runoff, the rain has a tendency to absorb into the soil more frequently because it's not like a parking lot surface any longer. That's compacted, dried out, where the grass has died, and it just, the water literally runs off. It actually helps in absorption of rainwater.
Yeah, I appreciate the response, Jim. The only reason I asked the question is I just heard some rumors where somebody said, oh, well, why don't we move this water up to other, the liquid waste to other areas, including Gardeners Bay Country Club. And that, in my opinion, would be a disaster. And I guess my question is to Ms. Gennaro, if other sites were considered, that would have to be the subject of an extensive study, would it not?
Correct. You would have to evaluate the impact of that action, yes.
Thanks. Thank you. Stella?
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to ask, the SEQRA review seemed to make a declarative statement that this will not impact any of the Suffolk County Water Authority wells. And I just wanted to ensure or ask that there also be a declarative statement in there that it won't impact any of the Heights public water supply.
They're literally side by side, right, Stella? I mean, fairly in close proximity.
They are in close proximity, hence the question, but I'd feel better just knowing that it was, they were both looked at.
Yep.
Please.
Quite well taken.
Anybody else in the Zoom audience? Okay, anybody else in the room? Patrick?
Just want to follow up on Jim's,
State your name for the record, Patrick.
excuse
State your name for the record.
me, Patrick Clifford. There was a discussion here, Jim, as you know, at the end of one of the meetings about transferring water to Gardner's Bay Country Club as a possibility. There were ongoing conversations going on back and forth, and even where we participated in one or two of them, just to get a sense of where things stand. So just to set it straight, it's an option probably at some point that people looked at. It's not just make-believe that people are talking about.
It's also an option to irrigate Sylvester Manor.
Nobody's looked at it. I don't know what that means when you say looked at it. It's been thrown out there.
If you couldn't get rid of the wastewater, what we're now talking about in this proposal, maybe the right thing to do. Have to put it someplace. So I'm sure when people thought about it, they thought, how about possibly there? The last question connected to it is why did we decide not to put wastewater from the heights down on the old Goat Golf Course?
It wasn't cost effective. It wasn't cost effective.
I understood there was also some concern about water getting into the nearby wells. Only reason I bring it up is the same thing appeared in some old reports in Hay Beach, but it was more about saltwater intrusion. So,
But I would like this, when you irrigated up on the golf course at Goat Hill, or you recharged, it was flowing down towards the wells. We did not think that was too risky. That was way too risky to even look at. It was a great idea to begin with. County was very excited about it because they've done it successfully in other places. But in fact, what we were looking to do is, as a trade-off, something that would benefit the town and benefit the Heights. They would upgrade their plant. They meet current standards, but this would even cut it down even much further by upgrading their facility. We would also be able to put on, hopefully, Bridge Street and be able to eliminate the conventional systems that are literally hanging on the edge of Chase Creek and Deering Harbor. So everything we're doing, even Volunteer Park, we got a pump out station. Down at Crescent Beach, pump out station. Why? Because we didn't want to put an IA system 50 feet away from the water and have this stuff flow in there. So everything we've made decisions on have been in the nature of protecting the environment.
so back to the question that was asked. We will not, to the best of our knowledge at this point, having conversations about moving water onto Gardner's Bay Country Club.
You can always have conversations. That's all they are.
It's not under consideration.
It's not
Under consideration,
Absolutely not under
to be honest with
consideration.
you, honestly, the price tag on this alone is a pretty healthy price tag. We're focusing on getting this done and then focusing on incentives to get IA systems in the center of town. Whatever happens after that, there's going to be other people up here making those decisions.
Last question connected to the center. From the very beginning, the idea of having stores with housing up above for the affordable housing seemed to make a ton of sense for seniors, the people who need housing, everything is right nearby. How did that just kind of disappear from the whole thing?
I don't think it disappeared, Howard. I think it's one of the, Patrick, I think it's one of the possibilities that the housing group is looking at. Here's the reality. How many buildings have upstairs that they can rent? How many buildings are empty now that can't rent the downstairs, never mind the upstairs?
Well, it would take a pretty good gifted program of laying it out. But if you're going to do all of this work and spend all of this money, anybody with a half a brain knows that makes a ton of sense.
So you would want us to expand the wastewater system to accommodate that?
That's why I'm asking.
It's a big deal.
That's not our intent.
But even if all the privately controlled pieces fell into place, we would have to establish, the town, a wastewater treatment district, and this was a process, that's a process.
But that's probably what happened. I was just curious.
Yeah, so there might be somebody in the future.
And just as a point of reference, the project with the Heights, the discussions to irrigate took place before Joe Fenora came on board. And as soon as Joe came on board, his first question to the town was, you want to recharge right where the wells are. I think we need to look at this. So
now, with all of these proposals that have come through, looking just at the amount of pages we've been reading over the last 2 weeks, would it be unreasonable to ask for a 1-month delay for people to look at all of this and make a final decision versus, trying to do it all in a week?
I don't think we have a time frame.
I have 60 pages.
Patrick, there is no time frame. We're trying to get as much input as we can. I mean, this is the official presentation of the secret report. I mean, we're not rushing this. We're just addressing it.
A month delay would not be unreasonable.
Not at all.
Well, I mean,
The only complication is, everybody knows that school situation, so by continuing to delay a decision on this, we've put them in a situation, we put ourselves in a situation where one of the major contributors to this may or may not stay with this project. That is something that I'm personally very concerned about, but, and we all are, but I don't know what advantage I don't know if if we keep delaying this, whether that's,
well, I don't think it's a matter of delaying it. It's a matter of continuing to move through the process with due diligence. So this is just the end of one step. This is just the secret report from the consultant. And then there's a whole nother, tons of steps. There's a whole staircase that we still have to climb before it gets close to even being viable shovel in the ground.
Before a final decision is made, if you're willing to at least consider, if it's only my request, I would say don't hold it up. But I assume that everybody that's closely affected by it is going to really take a hard look at this report. There's not enough questions today to satisfy me that they've done their homework.
Yeah, this isn't done.
No,
This isn't close to done.
That's
Yeah.
fine, thank you.
No problem.
Can I ask a question?
Like Pam Demarest is next, then Pam?
You're on mute, Pam.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I really appreciate PW Grosser coming and discussing their report with us. I have looked over the short environmental assessment form. I had a question on question number 5, where it talks about adjoining and near properties, land uses adjoining and near the sites. And one part wasn't checked, that was parkland. And I wondered if that was considered in any of this. There is properties that are CPF lands that are adjacent to this treatment facility. There are other properties that are within 200 feet of this land that the proposed wastewater treatment plant is going to be on. So it wasn't checked on the short environmental assessment form. And I noticed that the report from the historic folks on whether or not it would have an effect on the archaeological things had mentioned that you have to look into the effects to any parkland. And there is open space land there from Conic Land Trust. There's only 2 properties over. So I that's a question that I have for the consultant, I guess, had that been looked at. And then I was also concerned that in the questionnaire for the grant money that was sent in to the New York State Consolidated Funding application in July, you had already determined that the SECRA negative declaration was going to be expected. And that seems very premature without any consultation of any kind. So I don't know who was responsible for answering that question in the paperwork. That was question number 2364 to be precise.
Yeah.
I think, Pam, if I can answer that, I think,
I'm sorry.
if I can answer that, I think we determined that SECRA wasn't needed, and we went over and above to include it.
No. No, I think you wouldn't apply for a grant on a project that you think is going to get a positive I think you go forward with the anticipation that it's going to be, otherwise you wouldn't really go forward with the project if it was going to impact the environment in a negative way.
Hey, Kim,
I'm sorry, but you could say the declaration You can have certainly have a conditioned negative declaration under secra. That's a possibility that it's
Yeah,
conditioned.
let Kim respond.
Just turn this over to Kim and provide a little context to Kim about the two documents that Pam's referring to. The short environmental form that was submitted as part of the grant applications is not the secra process. The short environmental form is a requirement for the grant applications, but it's not reflective of the secra determination which PW Grosser has made. So there's.
I'm not familiar with the document that you're referring to. I didn't see that. I don't know if the grant was for preliminary engineering. I don't know what the grant monies were for. But that agency was involved and they were looking for a secret determination. And that was communicated to us in order to advance forward. Regarding the open space parkland question, that's designated New York State parkland, not open space area. So I think that was, and if there's designated New York State parkland, that's a different impact assessment. But OPRHP did review for cultural resources, for archaeology and historic impact.
Okay, but it's the parcel I'm referencing to is a Peconic Land Trust open space designated land use. So and it's less than 300 feet from the proposed site. So that was just a question that I had. And then the other question I was wondering is how many trees are going to be coming down, considering that this is the habitat for the northern long-eared bat that has just been put on the endangered species list.
Right, it's a potential. I don't have the tree count in front of me, but the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation is very clear that you can remove trees, but you cannot remove them outside of the window of December 1st to February 28th. So there is no clearing allowed March through November. And that's to prevent any impact to that species. And that is New York State guidance.
Okay, and then the other, just one more quick question about the Department of Health has noted in their letter to you that the standards require for this proposal for the MSSDS, right? This is what this is, must also be connected to a community water supply. And we haven't been talking about any community water supply being connected from Suffolk County Water or any type of that. That hasn't been part of the conversation. And then the other thing is that the grant funding is based on the other involved agencies accepting the determination of significance put out by the town board.
Well, by the agencies giving authority for the town board to act as lead, that determination stands with these agencies.
Even if the other agencies determine that it might be a type 1 action?
There's no agency that indicated that there should be a type 1 action. We have indicated that this was preliminary classified as unlisted.
Okay.
I don't know which letter you're referring to.
It was actually underneath the grant funding again, the consolidated funding application questionnaire there. Actually, the thing about the grant funding was in the Suffolk County Department of Health letter. I'm sorry. So.
Okay.
It happens to say that. The determination must be accepted by all of the involved agencies, so.
Right, so I just wanted to make another point that on March 31st, we received a letter that the DEC has full jurisdiction over this plant, that the county health department is not reviewing. The sole authority is with the state. And
Okay,
Joe,
and then
I don't,
did we look at the Peconic Estuary Comprehensive Plan for this
We did.
as well?
we did,
Okay.
we did, yes.
Okay. And will there be a public hearing on your for the town board? This is for the town board. Are we gonna have a full public hearing now on this secra process? Because you're supposed to involve the public in the review and we haven't really been involved in this review. We've only found out 3 days ago that this was unlisted and this was happening and you've gotten this far with the project. I'm asking that question, if there'll be a formal public hearing on this secra review on this project.
It's not required under seeker, but I'll let the board answer. But it's
Yeah,
not required under seeker.
I concur with the consultant.
Required. I am asking whether or not, I know that it's not required. I am asking if the town board is gonna consider doing such.
Now that you brought it up, we'll consider it.
Thanks,
Okay,
Pam.
thanks very
Kathy Kenny?
Kathy Kenny. Way over my head, I just have one general question. The reporter this week had an article that Sylvester Matter
Sorry, the
Consulting.
sound cut out.
Who said that?
Julia Brennan.
Kathy, maybe
Try
you
again.
should speak a little louder.
Yeah.
There was an article in the reporter this week that Sylvester Manor had their engineer submit a letter to the town board. And I just saw part of the letter and, you know, he makes a lot of points here and I'm hoping,
We responded to all of them. We have
is that part of the record?
it's gonna be part of the record as soon as we send it to them.
I believe it's on the website already, the town
Yeah,
website.
what's that? Okay. And did our consultant respond to these?
It's a consolidated response. Some questions were directed towards the hydrogeologist. He responded in such, Lombardo Associates responded to relevant questions for their work, and I responded to other generalized questions on the project. Each question that was submitted received an answer. Yep, and the full version of that is available on the town website as of.
The one thing I was a little concerned with was, I don't know who got to answer it, but it was number 3. The health department, Suffolk Health Department said that the Manwaring Road discharge location does not comply with the Appendix A standards. It's within a 0 to 2 year travel zone for public wells. This is typically considered a fatal flaw. So I presume that was responded to.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I could give you the answer to that now if you like. The first is that the Suffolk County Health Department, as Kim had mentioned, is not the permitting agency. That was clarified as of last week. That's not to say that their recommendations are not considered relevant in the project, but the 0 to 2 year modeling that they reference was really the main or one of the main objectives of the subsequent modeling that was done by the project team to demonstrate the interaction between neighboring wells and what we're proposing. So that reference to the model is why, to Suffolk County's concern, 0 to 2 year model, that reference is why we largely took on the challenge of making this model for our actions.
You know, I heard you at the last meeting. I think someone asked you, well, why didn't you use the athletic field or the fire department? And I thought your response was, well, it would be too disruptive. Was there any other reason you didn't use? That's what I recall.
Yeah, Fisk Field, you were addressing.
Fisk Field was a specific question.
Somebody mentioned.
Yeah, there's a couple of pieces at play there. The first is that at Fisk Field, this would have to be located in the center of the property because of the relevant setbacks to adjacent property owners. And there was concern that it would be disruptive and there would be a loss of recreational use to the field because of how this is sited in the middle of the field. The other strong reason for not considering the fire department or Fisk Field is because of the flow patterns that are demonstrated in the model. Locating this at Fisk Field would still be negatively impacting those neighbors surrounding it and also continuing to Menands Creek.
No, it's my alarm. I have to go to my doctor.
I thought it was like Costco.
That's much more pleasant than a buzzer.
Yes.
Yes.
Ben? Ben Guy has his hand.
Sorry. I had to unmute here. Just another funding question. To get funds from the county, am I correct? I'm not sure. Doesn't the county have to review and agree with the SECRA finding? So for the town to be eligible for county funds?
We already got county funds. We got $250,000 from the county.
Okay. So there, but for additional funds, or are you not applying to the county for more funds?
I'm not sure what the question is.
His question, I think, is,
If you apply for additional funds from the county, does that require the county to review the secret finding that we're discussing today?
Secret findings.
Yes, yes, it does. And the distinction, if what you're making is in reference to the discussion about the county not having jurisdiction, those are separate departments within the county. So the Suffolk County Department of Health, who traditionally issues permits for residential and private septic and wastewater systems, is the entity that does not have jurisdiction over this project. Suffolk County Water Quality, I forget,
RPR?
Yeah, the WQPRP committee is a separate and distinct committee that reviews a wide range of applications for water quality improvement funding. And that is the committee that issued the $250,000 in grant funding for this project.
I've got an unfair question. I'm not, don't for sure you won't know, but do you know how much they normally hand out in a year, WQIR?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
All these letters makes it sound like radio stations.
yeah.
Thanks, Ben. Jan? You're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So several people already asked that the board considers 30-day period for public comments, so the public, interested people, interested organizations have a sufficient time to review the materials that were delivered over the last 2 weeks, which is the Lombardo addendums 1 and 2, Joe Finora presentations, and now PW Grosser's presentation. So 30 days, and then a call for a public hearing. And I must be like a third or fourth person asking for it. So could the board give me a definitive answer on this? And I have.
I think the answer was that we weren't going to rush into any quick decisions. We're going to continue to hear from the public. And this is the first time public hearing has been brought up. It's not required, so it's something we have to discuss.
What I would recommend, there is no requirement, as Kim said, in secret regulations for public hearing. However, we can open up a comment period similar to what we do, and I think that's fair enough because they just got the report a couple of days ago to review it and make comments on it for 30 days. So before you act on making the determination of a neg deck by a resolution, maybe we have that 30-day period for written comment.
And I would just ask, those comments include or take into account all the responses from the addendums from Lombardo, Joe's responses to Sylvester Manor, and any other. Let's not have the same questions again because we already have the answer.
Can we put that all into one document on our website?
It's already there.
No, it's all in different, it's in multiple pieces. I'm saying, click on one folder.
No, because it's all in a folder, sure.
Yes.
But I mean, the questions are specific to who asked them, so we're not gonna.
No, absolutely. I think every relevant piece of document should be in a folder for people to easily access.
Clear about what the opportunity for comment is for. It seems like some folks want to make a comment about the project. Some folks want to make a comment about SECRA, this process. I think it's important if we open this period up for more comment that it be.
It's narrowly tailored to SECRA.
Yeah, so.
It's the SECRA report.
I would add that that's what we did. Public comments were received as part of this, and we have a recommendation from the consulting,
correct
firm to.
But again, the report was just issued in fairness to, you'll get your time. Just something in fairness to the public, they should have an opportunity to review it and ask questions or make comments on it. But in also fairness to the board, a lot of these they've been talking about this wastewater treatment facility for months and months and months and months, and had numerous presentations at work sessions where they allowed the public to comment. in real time on these things. So there has been public input
Stephen, can we?
the whole way.
Request the comments or
Okay, request it.
questions in advance so that we can respond to them instead of having a.
Well, and
public
then,
hearing.
listen, no, I
6 weeks to respond.
I misspoke. It's a public comment period.
Right.
So it's not really a question answer thing.
Okay.
It's public comment, so then you get it in, and then you have some time to read it before you make your determination on whether it's a neg deck.
Okay, if I could add to, just follow up to what town attorney said. We as Friends of Cocos Harbor, we have provided extensive input early in the process in October. Okay, there has not been any discussion for 5 months while Lombardo was working on his addendums and PW Grosser was working on his SECRA. So now when those documents were released, we want to have a fair chance to evaluate those documents and provide comments to those documents, okay? And also, I just would like to ask to comment on what Joe Finora said, that there was a letter from Sylvester Manor, which questions several aspects of what Lombardo has presented in his latest publications, and taking issue with particularly this water flow study and calling explicitly for positive declaration, okay? I would like, so just because Mr. Finora provided the answer, that doesn't mean that this consultant from Sylvester Manor is satisfied with it, and he needs to have a fair chance to evaluate what was provided as an answer and then provide his feedback, okay? And my follow-up question to Ms. Genaro Vancera is, did you have a chance to get familiar with this letter from Sylvester Manor prior to delivering this report and prior to today's meeting?
It was sent 5 days ago.
Right. So I saw the letter and there has been a response to every statement or question. And there's no change to the analysis in the secret documents. So,
And Kim, just for the record, today's Tuesday, we received the document Friday afternoon.
correct.
We responded.
Okay. Well, then I think this consultant should have a chance to evaluate your answers and see if he's satisfied now, okay?
Who's consultant, who are you referring to?
I'm referring to Sylvester Manor consultant. I forgot his name at the moment.
Drew
D.B.
Bennett.
Bennett, yeah.
Yeah.
We
Okay, and
have
also-
our answer to his questions, and he's more than entitled to respond to them.
Okay, so would that be okay if the town kept the, 30 days for the public
We're
to
gonna
have a
talk about
chance to submit the final comments, please?
We weren't going to adopt a resolution this evening.
Yeah,
No.
I have one comment though. Jan, can we keep all of this on target, civil, and no grandstanding in the paper and that kind of stuff? Let's just, if you have legitimate questions, let's ask them. Let's get appropriate answers. What I don't want to see happen for the next 4 to 6 weeks is every week pick up the reporter and read another article about a fear tactic that's trying to shoot this project in the foot without any merit whatsoever. Let's stay constructive with it. If you can agree to that, this town board will be a lot more patient than it has been in the past.
Okay, I have no idea what you're referring to. We have
well,
not published
okay.
anything.
All right.
Anything in newspaper in months, okay?
Okay.
So, and whether it has merits or not, that's your opinion, okay? We may have a different opinion.
That's good.
We would like to have a chance to provide a written submission to the town commenting on all the latest documents which were delivered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So first, Mr. Colligan and Jim, I don't think what you said earlier, anyone would have any disagreement with whatsoever. The choice, though, is not between doing nothing and doing the Manwaring project. And you'd speak as though that is the choice, and it really has never been that choice. Everyone is in agreement that we should not do nothing.
I agree.
It's whether we should use these local IA systems rather than that. And with all due respect to the board, I don't think that the localized IA system alternative has gotten a fair shake during this process. I don't believe when the town engineer puts up a chart of expenses, it'll be $3 million to do the Manwaring project and $3 million to be doing the localized system. And then a minute later, he admits, well, that's really just $2 million because you'd have to spend an extra $1 million to get you that marginal benefit in nitrogen reduction. The question is, and in this presentation last week, we continually said the goal is to maximize the environmental improvement or whatever. And the goal is never to do that. The goal is to optimize it. The goal is to take the resources the town has and do the best that it can to have the right amount of pollution, not no pollution. The additional money, Gobler estimated 800,000 to $1 million. You're saying 2 million. Maybe it's somewhere in between, but maybe it's.
I never said 2 million, but that's okay.
We'll look at the tape.
Using a few different comparisons. Specifically, you asked for an apples to apples comparison, and that's what was provided, apples to apples. The two approaches cost approximately the same.
Yeah, but the goal is.
What you said, Bob, is that some pollution is acceptable, and that's an unfair basis for evaluating costs. You can't consider a system that pollutes more but costs less a cheaper option than one that costs more but treats more.
But if
so
the
comparing them equally in treatment,
you're not making
costs.
any logical sense whatsoever in your last statement, but that's not a. Yeah. What I'm saying is the marginal benefit of an additional 2%, 3%.
And that's also wrong, Bob. This 98%, 2%, it's totally unfounded and without basis. And you're doing a great job at spewing numbers that are impossible to follow. None of them coalesce to make any sort of sense with the nitrogen reductions.
You have not made that case plainly to the public. I'm glad that we have an organization that I'm not part of, the Cockles Harbor Friends of Cockles Harbor Group. Apparently is going to take a much closer look at this. Maybe they'll come to the conclusion that you reached. Maybe they won't. But from what I see, and just from listening to what happened today and the way the questions I was asking and the way the answers are being dissembled, I didn't think that you made a convincing case of the alternative system. You talk about variances that be required for the IA system. Well, have you tried to get the variances from the county to do localized IA systems? So finally,
I'll let you talk.
Sure, go ahead.
The statement was the county always gives variances. It's never a no. We've gotten two
Denials.
Fair enough. I got that information from Gobler's report, which was about 6 months old, so that might have been
But it's still out there.
Okay.
Those declinations predate the Gobler.
Okay.
Just a second, could I just?
Go ahead.
Actually, I hate to put you on the spot. It's my understanding we have approximately 200 IA systems in the ground now. What would be, since you handle this, what's the percentage of IA systems in the center of town on that 200 approximately?
Probably around 26 systems.
26 of 200?
Yes.
Okay. So you're talking about maybe 13%?
To my knowledge, I mean, but it's approximately.
So what I'm saying is the concentration of the IA systems are not here in the center of town.
Right.
So to assume that, and it's still voluntary. No, there's no government agency that's forcing any homeowner, regardless of where you live on this island, to mandate that you put in an IA system. So what?
In some instances, yes.
Okay, but outside of new construction, which we have more of that on the periphery than we do in the center of town. So therefore, what I'm saying to you is that you have to acknowledge the fact that past history has shown you over the last 4.5 years that maybe less than 15% of the IA systems going in the ground have put in the center of town. There is no mandate that you have to put one in unless it is new construction or major renovation to your house. So I just want you to understand that. It'll be the challenge of the new town board here to create enough incentives to try to convince people in the center of town, along with this system, to jump on board, because we need a multi-pronged approach. That included the IA systems. But that's, I just want you to understand, if I can understand if 85% or 75, 50%, of 100 of them had gone in the center of town. That's not the case.
So let me ask another question. I'll respond to that in a sec. But another question, if the school decides to do its own IA system and not participate in this wastewater treatment plant project, would the wastewater treatment plant project make any economic sense at all? I mean, to do the additional, there's 6 buildings altogether, right?
Depends what you mean by economic sense. Where do you put a value on public health?
Well, it's going to cost $3 million.
What do you put a value on, how about some of the kids in the center that
No, don't
do have
start.
cancer?
No, don't start with, I'm not saying do nothing.
No,
I'm not saying do nothing. I'm saying the money, the extra $1 million or so could be better spent doing alternatives plus the IA systems for the 6 buildings. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, now, if the school doesn't participate, I understand. The school doesn't participate, it doesn't make sense because you're just dealing with the Justice Building, this building, that building, and the other buildings. So it doesn't make sense whatsoever. So if the school goes ahead and does the IA system as soon as possible, all right, then you can put IA systems in these other locations, save the extra $1 million, and use that for alternative means. The other thing I'd like to make, Marcus Kasich, during a debate like 2 years ago, when he was running for office, made a really important point in that each part of this, the water problem, each part of this town is different. You can't do one size fits all, which has been, I think you've been trying to do. Like either renovation, you have to put it in. Well, the town center is a special area. So that red area, anything in that red area, you probably can have a regulation that is even stronger than would you have it for the areas that are green areas. Some areas have saltwater intrusion. That could be treated differently as well. So you could make homeowners and help finance the homeowners in this area and use the money to do that.
It goes back to Jim's, double approach. It's not just, this is it, this is the system. It's this, it's IA systems, it's possible public water, it's everything. It's a lot of
And the
definitions.
WQI is working on precisely that.
All right, well, that's fair enough.
It's multiple.
Yeah, but I'm suggesting that the localized IA systems for this thing makes a lot more sense than shipping it up to another area, affecting a whole other thing with no extra marginal benefit.
Everyone knows.
Okay, I wanted to dovetail on what Bob said. That is something the town board can take into account. Southampton has high priority zones where if you're located in a high priority zone, you have to upgrade to an IA system under certain circumstances. And so it compels people to put in an IA system above and beyond what Department of Health. So you do have that inherent authority as a town board to, look into what he suggested, that are the different areas of the town, you can make different priority systems. And if you're gonna build or do an addition or
And
do
we can
something.
also make
Let me
different
interrupt you.
criteria for
WQI
funding.
is working on this right now. To make it a special effort push in the center. But Betty, can you come help me? Come on up, You have to identify yourself.
Save the money so they can do a better job of what I'm suggesting.
Understood.
The WQI,
Understood.
yes, Elizabeth Bishop, Betty Bishop. I'm a member of the WQI. We are making every effort that we possibly can to increase the incentive for people to obtain or to put in IA systems. We're looking at bridge funding to bridge the gap between what Suffolk County and the WQI and the county and the state board, and for people who are at lower income and can't afford to pay for an IA system. We are looking at increasing our grant amount to help people out. We are looking into programs to advertise IA systems and how, what it takes to put one in, the benefits of putting one in. We are also looking to hire people to help the applicants, the people who are putting the IA systems in, to go through the whole process. So just let it be known that we are fully aware of the need for IA systems in the area. Also, I'd like to state that when we look at applications and whether we're going to give the money to them. We are fully aware of the red triangle area, which is in the center. So I think the board is making every effort that they possibly can to try to incentivize people to put in IA systems.
Let's not forget, we had a pandemic and then an inflationary / shortage. So we're getting back to
Suffolk County website got hacked and applications, you know, I mean, it's just been.
Overturning of the IRS ruling.
Right.
The IRS thing.
So we are ready, we're in the starting blocks.
Exactly.
All good points. Thank you very, very much. It's very helpful.
Okay, Pam?
Hi, folks. I'd like to get back on topic about the seeker. But and the other part of the reports that were posted on Friday included the short part 2 of the SEAF, which are the questions that are supposed to be filled out by the lead agency, but I see that the consultant has already filled them out for you. Have you taken a look at part 2 of the SEAF as they've submitted it to you and made a determination that you agree with the answers that the consultant has provided for you, or are you planning on doing that at another town board work session and going over those questions for that part of the assessment? Because it's the lead agency's responsibility to fill that section out, and yet the consultant has done it for you, so.
Kim represents the town, so she's doing that on behalf of the town board. She's the expert. Other townships have in staff.
But that page still needs a signature from the town board, so I'm just wondering.
Yes.
I'm wondering when.
There was never a formal determination yet.
Right, the signature is the determination.
Right, okay.
That's the last step. That's the last thing.
I certainly understand that as well, and I'm just questioning the board of whether or not they will have a separate meeting on going over that section of the assessment. Or are they just planning on?
Okay. That's what I went through today. But I went through the expanded report that was attached to that form. Rather than checking the boxes, we did an expanded analysis.
And you certainly did. I appreciate it. I appreciate the science behind it, honestly. As an environmental scientist myself, I do agree. I just wonder how the town board is going to handle that part of the process and just to finish this section up so that, again, they can move forward with the project.
Thank you, Pam.
Okay. We're going to close this part of the work session. Before we do, I just want to say something. We've been questioned all along on the experts that the town used. Originally, we used Lombardo Associates as our sole expert. That came into question. Nora represents the town as the town engineer. Once that was requested of us, we did bring in the hydrologist. We did bring in PW Grosser. So I feel very comfortable that we addressed all the technical questions. Might not be to everybody's satisfaction or what they wanted to hear, but we did address them. I think the 2 issues that I hope in the next 30 days people want to really talk about, because I feel that we did address all those issues and we responded to Sylvester Manor and to, I think we responded to the super group, but we're going to do that now that we have the secret, is the cost effectiveness of this project as opposed to individual systems. And the bottom line here, let's not kid ourselves. In the report, in the letter we got from the attorney for the Friends of Cockles Harbor, density was mentioned 10 times. That's the issue. It's not the quality of water. It's what are we going to do if we get this system to expand density on the island for community housing. That's the bottom line. So I hope you keep that in mind in the next 30 days when you have your questions. Thank you. It's a work session. We don't have to.
We have a board member around the table.
Okay, board member report.
Yeah, so I also want to go over the Easter egg hunt.
Right.
I'm just gonna change direction.
Very lighter subject.
Yeah, so we did receive an outdoor assembly application for the Easter egg hunt, which is done every year. And it's
It's pretty standard. They do require town services. The fire department that puts on the event also manages the traffic. They park in the field across the street. The Easter egg hunt itself is on the St. Gabriel's lawn, that area. And that's actually an area that is deeded. Part of their deed is that the fire department chipped in money to the purchase of that land so that they could have this event on that property. This event, and I think like the chicken barbecue. So it is a use of CPF property that's approved. And so the event is this weekend. Our subgroup talked about it. It is an event that is for the benefit of the community. It's, brings the children together. It's a fun event for everybody. So traffic control is done by the police department and the fire department, or the firemen, police, their group. There's no amplified noise. There's no, all trash is removed from the site by the applicants. They manage all of that. They manage parking. There's no lighting. So there's no other events this weekend, so there's no conflicts. So with review of all of that, we recommended approving that application as it's.
Really, it's a formality, though.
It's a formality, really, at the Easter egg hunt. And, it's the ladies auxiliary does it every year. So just wanted to let everybody know that that will be happening. It's lots of fun. And Easter egg
So we're
hunt.
going to approve that tonight.
Yeah.
When it's about, is that a?
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Other than that, let me grab my other book. If someone else wants to go while I find my other book.
Okay.
Jim?
Well, thanks for finding that. I'd just like to congratulate the crew, stage crew, cast, all the adults, the K-6, who do an unbelievable job putting together a musical each and every year. But if anybody out there went to see Mamma Mia, I think there were 4 performances. It was phenomenal. These kids do a great job. It's the single best event that I find of the year. And I was just so proud of the kids and everybody that took part in that, and to the adults, and particularly the K-6 that, stick with this year after year and do such a great job. Maggie, you want to go back to you?
Before we move on, Tom, I think you have to remind Nathan that break a leg is just an expression.
Is that what happened?
The kid had a broken leg and he still did the last 2 shows.
Oh, awesome. Wow. He was very good, by the way. Excellent. So, as they all were.
That was fantastic.
It was a great show. You bring a 4-year-old to a 2-hour performance, and then some, maybe 2.5 hours, and he gets excited about it, that's special.
Yeah, Cassick and crew does an amazing job.
They are treasures in this island. They really are.
Meg?
Yes, so circling back to me. So comp plan is going to have 2 meetings this month to go over the governance chapter and the natural environment chapter. All of the chapters of the comprehensive plan can be found on the town website. Comments can be made through the comment button on the town website when you click on comp plan, or at the bottom of every chapter, there's a link to make comments. You can also email comments to BJ, myself, or Coco, and they will all be forwarded to the consultants. And, if you want to mail us a letter, we'll take that too. Any information you want to give us, we will take. The next meeting, and these meetings are going to be work sessions for the CPAC to discuss the chapters in depth, the way we have all the previous chapters. These are the last 4 chapters that we need to work on. And then hopefully by the time we're done with this, then the consultants will be able to come up with a nice draft of the plan for the public at large to then comment on once again. This is really trying to give the consultants all the meat and potatoes they need to make the stew, so to speak. So our meeting for the CPAC is going to be April 17th at 6:30 and April 24th at 6:30. It's available at Zoom and it's also here in person. And it's going to be a work session for the CPAC to discuss the chapters. So typically we will take public comment at the end of those meetings, but this is kind of our work session to hash out these super, super rough rudimentary drafts of these chapters. And it's really the first time that the whole group has had that chance to have these conversations. So feel free to watch, bring your comments, comment online, and we'll have those comments before the meeting and we can incorporate them into the chapters. But the 17th and the 24th at 6:30, those are Mondays, are the next two meetings for April. And then in May, we're going to be discussing the housing chapter and the zoning chapter. And those meetings will be on the 15th and the 22nd. And that's of May. So yeah, that's what we have coming up.
I'm sorry, zoning and what?
Zoning and housing.
And also to say, just to interject.
Yeah, go for it.
Throughout the summer, there are meetings planned.
Right.
This is not your only opportunity. By all means, come each and every time. But that being said, that if you can't make these upcoming 2 months, April and May's meetings, there is going to be, we believe, ample opportunity throughout the summer for people to comment and be heard. And you're always able to comment online.
Yeah. And the purpose of this is to get a very rough draft to the consultant so that they can create a complete document for the CPAC and the public to review during the busy months. So, June, July, August, September is really when we want to have a draft out for public consumption and for public input so that we can have town hall style meetings and get input from the public. So we can have meetings with special interest groups on the island when everybody is out here during the summer. So we're trying to do all the prep work now so that there is something solid for the town to look at.
I also want to mention, I wanted a minor correction to the reporter article about the last CPAC meeting. Internally, we've heard from CPAC members who did not speak up at that meeting. I guess they didn't think it would be so highlighted, that the timetable is a good idea. That it is contrary to rushing the process, which was mentioned at that meeting by one or two members. It is more an idea of let's stay on a track. I don't know, interpreted in other worlds, timelines are an accepted way of doing business. And so we're just trying to sort of do that here. It's 3 long years in the making where we are now. Data gets stale. And with the rededication of our volunteers on CPAC, I see no reason why we can't accomplish what we're looking to accomplish. It's a month between to read, 40, 50, 60 pages.
Well, and now we also have the consultants on board to help us finish the process, which we haven't had previously. And at this point, we have drafts of all the chapters. There's no reason not to move forward and get very solid public input on a complete draft of this document.
Yeah.
So it's appropriate timing.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Jim?
All right, the only one report I have is Capital Planning and Grants Committee met this morning at 9:00. Real Point, we're really still waiting for the Army Corps to get back to us about funding. West Neck Water District, the infrastructure program of replacing the mains is ongoing. Probably will take several weeks to complete that process. Third item is the Shelter Island Property Owner Corporation Heights wastewater treatment plant upgrade and Bridge Street. No real report on that. And I must apologize on behalf of the town. Stella, we have really been focusing most of our attention on municipal wastewater treatment plant here, Fresh Pond, but we are going to start to redirect some of our energies back over with you guys and hopefully pick that up and go with it. Fresh Pond is, the kickoff meeting is scheduled for next week. Consultants will meet with members of the Fresh Pond Neighbors Association and the town to address the lines of communication and securing of additional funding for construction and other costs associated with the project. That's pretty much on Fresh Pond. We're moving forward with that. ADA project, we're moving forward with that. Pam has finished pretty much her design plans for Shelter Island Police Headquarters. That'll be a presentation on April 18th here at a town board meeting. The next steps we'll be waiting for a community block grant to be acted upon. We put in for $50,000 for Justice Hall, to get that ADA work done, that design plan done for that. So we should know more probably by early fall, in September or so, on the community block grant. On the municipal wastewater treatment, we spent the entire meeting pretty much on that. We heard on March 21st, Peter's report, March 28th, Joe's report. Today, we heard PW Gross's consultant presentation. Tomorrow, the school, the Board of Education Administration, are meeting with their architects on their presentation. The next day, on April 6th, bids will be opened up for the IA septic system on the 6th. On the 19th, the school board and the administration will make their final decision. So we're talking about a couple of weeks away from that decision, starting 2 weeks from tomorrow. And again, regardless of the Board of Education's decision, the town board will continue to pursue the municipal wastewater treatment project. I would like to point out, I think Jennifer did a great job this morning trying to say why we did not qualify for the grant this morning. And we've got that denial from the New York State DEC. They only issued 3 grants on all of Long Island out of about 35 to 40 grants. Most of them went to upstate communities. There were 4 areas that we fell down in. Number 1, there's nothing we could do about it. It's called the EJ community. That's environmental justice. We lost 7 points there. We just do not qualify. Number 2, project readiness. We got 5 out of 10 points. So we lost 5 points there. And by the way, when we had to put in for this grant, we didn't have all the permitting and the secret requirements completed. So we lost 5 points there. In terms of number 3, experience and ability, we got 20 out of 38 points. We lost 18 points there. Simply, we had no prior wastewater treatment projects in the past 10 years. If we had prior ones, we would have got additional points, but this is our first. So there's not a lot you can do about that. Number 4, performance measures. We got 20 out of 38 points. The nature of our project fell under the 20-point category. There are 2 other categories of 30 points and 38 points. This project does not qualify for those 2 other columns. So the maximum number of points we could get there were 20. So therefore, if you add those losses up, that was 32 points. And if you figure we got 53 out of 85 points, there is the missing 38 points. It's important to know that because the next time we are going to reapply, there's 2 things that come out of that. How can we enhance our next application, which we obviously will be able to pick up some points there. And the other thing is, we talked about contacting Fred Thiel, Senators Schumer and Gillibrand. Some of the things about the way the criteria is written kills us because we have the sole source aquifer here. It's just not fair. You're not comparing apples and apples and oranges and oranges. So based on, what upstate communities can fill out, we don't qualify for a full point value. So they have to take a look at that. There's a weakness in the application itself and it's based on a point system. We didn't fall to the bottom, but we weren't near the top either. So we do have to beef up that application. There's other funding mechanisms available other than that 1 grant, but we will pursue that as well. Very quickly, the Shelter Island Community Center across the street, you can see the work is being finalized now. They're probably about 70% finished. The doors will be the last thing that we do. There's no guarantee we'll get that done before Memorial Day, but talking to Brian Sherman this morning, he does assure me that the ramp and hopefully the paving, and if Corzini is available, we'll get that circle repaved to raise it up so that bottom step meets the requirement. All the other work should be done, on that, on the front of the community center. On Condon Dock, Joe and Brian going to complete the amended design plans. In fact, as I was informed this morning by Brian Sherman, that he met with Al Loretto. Al Loretto drew up new plans, and they will submit it with our application to raise the bulkhead at Condon Dock and the surrounding area to the maximum. I think we have to stay below 18 inches or below. If you go above 18 inches and raising it, it involves a whole, it's the same thing we had down at Volunteer Park. We raised the bulkhead 18 inches there. We had the same situation. At Third Bridge, Second Bridge, Third Bridge it was, we had the same thing there where they ended up raising that up. So that's all in the works. The New York Avenue walking path, I talked to Stella about this offline. She's thinking because of the complications with wetlands permits and a few other things, that getting this done before Memorial Day was not possible, that it would be a fall 2023 project. Gareth, if you want to, pursue that with Stella a little bit, and we might be able to talk to her about it. We're pretty eager to get going on our end, but I don't think, that's a possibility. We could do our southern half of the walkway and then wait for them to complete, or we could do it all together in the fall, if in fact we have to wait that long, okay? We also talked about, the new business was a capital planning report. We got the department heads met on March 17th on St. Patrick's Day. We explained the rationale for what we're trying to do in terms of developing a capital plan for the town. There's a 3-month task right here between April through June, April, May, and June. Christina has gathered the major capital needs of each department head. Currently, there are 13 specific needs. 4 of them, as I used as an example, fall under the police department, upgrading police radios, EMS radios, an EMS power lift stretcher system, et cetera. So these are key items that fall outside the normal realm of the budget. We might be looking at a fit center in there. I don't know exactly what, I haven't seen the entire list of all those projects, but we have 3 months that we'll be working on. The breakdown of this will be, Amber has informed us that the town budget this year contains $235,000 dedicated to capital planning, of which $80,000 has been.
Wait, but from appropriations.
From appropriations.
Because we
correct.
have, it's more, but we have grants
correct.
and
Okay.
reserves that we've used.
From appropriations is a good point. $80,000 has already been earmarked for specific projects, which leaves us with the remaining amount. So in May, capital planning meeting will be devoted strictly to looking at those projects. And in June, the committee will invite all department heads to their meeting to look at each one of those. We're going to try to prioritize them for the town board. We're going to put them together, submit them by the end of June, well before your budget season, and the town board will have the ability to be able to review all the major projects and what we're going to do in 2024, 25, 26, 27, and 28 over the course of the next 5 years. Jennifer's reports, letters of support for the municipal wastewater. We're still working on those, by the way. That's important to get done. So Jennifer will be working with both Amber and Christina in the coming weeks on that. The ferry terminals, the status of the MOUs are being looked at. Joe and Stephen will be working, hopefully get that done by the end of this month. And lastly, Jennifer will be submitting her monthly reports to me, and I will attach them to the official minutes. We also, an old business opioid grant, Amber will be doing that in the next few weeks. And Shelter Island Community Center generator and cooling system, we're seeking a new FEMA guidance on that. And Jennifer and Jim Reed will be working on that. That was the extent of the meeting this morning. I gave you copies of it. This is a rough draft. Christina is nice enough to be able to update this for me, but I just wanted to get a quick turnaround time for you guys to understand what's going on in capital planning. All right, thank you.
Amber?
I didn't have any committee meetings last week, but been busy working on stuff. We're working on the ADP upgrade, the town website upgrade, capital planning, meeting with various department heads to help them get their capital requests in. Looking at what the facilities master plan, some engineering firms about that. So.
I'll attest that you've been busy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, even on town stuff, even though I've got other stuff going on. So, but yeah, as stuff comes to fruition, I'll keep you guys.
That's what happens in a 26-hour.
Yeah.
You know?
BJ?
I don't have much. I would encourage anybody who is interested in the wastewater treatment plant, to go to the school board meeting tomorrow night. I think there'll be an opportunity for public comment at the beginning of the meeting. It begins at 6 p.m. I would especially encourage, I think we hear a lot, and we hear it very loudly and we hear it repetitively from the people who are against anything, this topic, but other topics too. So people who are for this, especially friends of Menantic Creek, and friends of anybody who lives in the path of the effluent that goes to Menantic Creek, which I think contrary to Greg Toner's analysis shows, okay, it's not in the 270 degrees that he says is not being helped by this, but it is an additional area that we didn't think until we saw this modeling was negatively impacted. It is. So if you show up at the school and say that 19 isn't good enough when safety is only arrived at 10, it would help.
BJ, I'm so glad you brought that up, but I'll even go back to comment that supervisor made about the health, can you put a price tag on the health of human life? I don't live in the path, so to speak, and I'm far away from the center of town, but this is an investment. We talk about being one island. Well, let's be one island. Care if you live out on Ram Island, you live in Silver Beach. These are, again, going back to the musical, going to a Friday night basketball game, going to graduation, watching the kids run up, protecting the lives of young people here. And the school is located in Ground Zero is of utmost importance. You can't say it anymore. To argue over whether we're going to spend another $500,000 or $1 million, you put a price tag on the price of the health of these young people. I'm an old timer. I've lived my life, but these kids deserve better. Families in the center of this town deserve better. I don't think we need to nickel and dime this thing. Let's do every initiative possible to clean up this nitrogen problem and other toxic materials that are in the center of this town and protect the lives of not just the people who live here, but throughout the entire island.
And if we amortize that 1 million, that is in play here, we think, over 20 years, we just divide it by the number of parcels in the tax base. Real cocktail napkin calculation, it's less than $20 a property per year. So again, what price? I don't think that's too high.
Steven, you have anything for us?
No, Mr. Supervisor.
I would like to just go over the agenda for tonight's meeting and just make any corrections that we have now so that Amber has time to adjust it before the meeting.
It's a great idea. Let's do it.
All right, cool.
Well, wait, while you look through what you want to do, I just want to say something. For those of us that are practicing Christians, it's a religious time of year. We consider it the Easter miracle. And I just want to say, I see Bob DeStefano's online, and maybe I'm not supposed to say this, but last Thursday, Bob got put on the transplant list, and Friday afternoon, he got a new kidney.
Yeah.
So I think that's our Shelter Island miracle. And Bob, first of all, I'm surprised that that you're on today, but I spoke with you yesterday. You sounded great, and I want you to know that you are definitely in our prayers.
Bob, we talked about this before the start of the meeting this morning. Each and every one of us wish you a very speedy recovery. So glad that you were able to get this done, and hope to see you soon. And stay positive, and Godspeed to you.
I'll talk to you soon, Bob. Okay, Meg?
Just some corrections and changes on this.
Are you going to start on page 3? What page are you starting on?
Yeah, we can start on page 3.
Which one are you?
I was going to bring up what you brought up. The Gordon Gooding states are wrong.
Oh, yeah, Amber's already.
It's already corrected that? Okay, good. All right, so that's correct.
For the, on page 4, for the Cornell Cooperative Extension Marine Program one,
Yes.
it's the Water Quality Improvement Advisory Board. There's no projects word in there, so I wrote that change in here. And then after the whereas the proposed cost amount is $200,000, I added whereas Water Quality Improvement Advisory Board recommends approval of said application for funding, because they did recommend approval for funding. And then it goes into the rest of the resolution. For for the local law, so Stephen, this one's for you, rights of way.
Also, the CCE.
Yeah,
I want to get a copy of it.
say again?
The supervisor should be authorized to say this time.
Well, also, we were gonna ask for reporting.
Thought that was on.
It's gonna be in the contract.
That'll be in the contract.
Yes.
Okay,
Gonna call for a
Yeah,
roll call
agreement.
on that one, okay?
all right.
Yeah, we said it's subject to the agreement, so in the agreement is where we'll put.
We'll put that, okay, really good, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so then the next note I have is that in the rights of way,
Section.
so page 7, 106-2 definitions, where it says obstruction.
Obstructions obstruction, okay, yeah.
Yeah, materials located within the boundaries of a highway, including the right-of-way or shoulder that interferes with public travel, whether vehicular, by bicycle, or foot, including, I wanted to add, but not limited to, vegetation, lumber, wood or logs, rocks, pipes, fencing, and athletic equipment. Because people put little farm stands, they put coolers, they put,
That's fine, including but not limited to, that's from the town attorney that feed it into me, that you don't need but limit to, including, just,
Okay.
it's just providing examples.
gotcha.
So you don't have to put that, so he beat it out of me, but I always used to like using it.
Yeah,
We,
I just didn't want someone to read it and be like, I can put my bicycle there.
yeah,
So,
I can put my ending part of it.
exactly. And then the next one I had was rental of real property under section 1 legislative intent.
Wait, let us get there.
Yeah, page,
Page 8 is.
I was gonna say they're all page 1.
Section of the,
Section 1 legislative intent, where it says, further, the town board finds the lack of community housing, I think that should be changed to year-round housing. Because it's not technically community housing because we're not regulating rental pricing. So I think every place in this where it says community housing, it should be year-round housing.
which we hope would translate into community housing, but I get it. Yeah.
Right, but you know what I mean? Because if there's a community housing license, then people are going to get confused. So I would like to distinguish one from the other.
In other words, community, year-round housing encompasses community housing, but is not limited to.
Correct. Like I said, I
It's a
think
bigger,
one of the impetuses for this legislation was to put it back into year-round, so it would
Well, and that's the other
put it
question.
into community
right.
housing.
But I think we would help our problem with year-round housing. You know, I mean, in other words, there are people who can afford a normal rent. Let's just say, you know, 3,000.
Right.
But when you
can't even find it.
But they can't find it. So,
Right.
you know,
Yes.
So, yeah, so that's kind of my, on that part.
Is that the only place we see that, Meg?
No, and then it's in the end too.
It is?
So down in the summary, it says it again. So I would change it in the summary as well. The very last line, I would change it to year-round instead of community.
Yep.
Just because there's, no restriction. And then, I mean, my other issue is with the elimination of B1. I actually don't think it's going to increase year-round housing opportunities.
Yeah. Where, are you in the same one?
I'm still in vacation rental, so 105-30, B1, like the section that you want to eliminate for the owner occupied rentals.
10530 B1, permitted, blah, blah.
And what did you want to do?
Where, the part Steven strikes out.
Yeah, you want to keep it in there?
I do, I think we should keep it. But this is why, Steven, I mean, I'm all about the inspections and everything, but I don't think that the people who utilize this option are going to convert those spaces to year-round rentals. This is like, no, I'm saying they will not rent. Because what's going to happen is these are people who inconvenience themselves for like 2 months to rent a room out, and people share their kitchen, they Airbnb it. I don't know that it's going to increase the number of year-round rentals.
I think
the way
you're
you're thinking.
And you're right, except where it says including legal accessory structure. I think if it's a structure.
If it's a separate and distinct.
That could be struck out.
I think
Right.
what I think you should.
And the rest kept.
Yeah. All right, so we'll,
This is for a public hearing.
Yeah.
So you can have this debate at the hearing.
But we have to, we want the wording to be pretty close to what we want at the hearing to be.
Yeah, our concern is if we substantially change it, then we're gonna have to do a public hearing again, and we're almost on the rental.
As far as we have an executive session.
Okay.
All right.
There you go.
okay.
Put it down.
Let me see if there's any other basic things on here.
Okay.
Legal advice.
Legal
Yep.
advice on process.
Process.
I
Let's see if I had any other notes. Let's see. I think that was my last note. Did anyone else have?
No.
So I know Christina sent notes earlier that Amber's already incorporated. Oh, those were.
I have, but I can just do it when I'll read the doc. I have an addition to the Weinstein Hensley doc resolution, but it was a revised,
I put it in
that is submitted, a
the
revised.
one you have, but I
Yeah, okay.
You give it to her now.
should probably write it before 6.
Want it now, or did you put in?
I did email it. Yeah. So whatever Christina emailed me, I've already changed, but I didn't email it out because I know there's more.
We haven't spoke about it, but I guess.
Okay, so
They submitted a revision of March 9.
Yeah.
No, no, so that's what I was putting in here on the first sentence. Have submitted a revised petition dated March 9, 2023, because that's what the WMAC approved.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we need that wording in there, or we don't?
Yeah, we definitely, I think.
And you're saying you have it in there?
I
Thank you.
no, it's we all can know it quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, there's nobody in the immediate audience. Anybody in the Zoom have any comments, questions? Okay, there's no questions. I'm going to make a motion. We close the work session and went to an executive session to discuss legal matter and employment history of an employee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.